Have you done? Chalo. So let us start with now the new topic, that is composition scheme. Till now we have just written whatever we have studied. That was section number 24. Section number 24 we have written without opening the book. Okay. So let us now start with composition scheme. There is one section left for my registration, a very small section that we will be doing. Chota sa section hai, that is your suspension. Now, what you have studied about suspension, can you tell me? There was section in registration about suspension. What have you studied?
30. Section number 30.
What is
cancellation and suspension. There were cases where PO may cancel the registration.
During the pendency of the proceeding of cancellation of your registration, whether due to any reason that is voluntary or due to any reason that proper officer deems fit, if we start the proceeding of cancellation of registration, in such a case, he can suspend your registration also. Is that so? Hello? Yahi hai wo?
Yes, ma'am.
Chalo. So now let us start with the new topic, that is composition scheme. What do you know about the composition scheme? Can anyone tell me? What is composition scheme?
Ma'am, here the supplier cannot charge GST from the customers, and there is fixed rate that the supplier pays to the government, 1.5%, 2.5%, something, and
it's a quarterly return.
And it is for small suppliers, like it is for food industry and.
So, when it comes to composition scheme, point number 1, is the composition scheme for everyone? No, composition scheme is not for everyone. There are variety of registration we have come across. Registration number 1, when you cross your threshold limit. If you cross the threshold limit, that is 10 lakh. If you cross the threshold limit, that is 20 lakh, or you cross the threshold limit, that is 40 lakh, you have to get registered. That was my normal registration under section 22. Then, even you do not cross any threshold limit, still you are compulsory required to get registered. That was my section number 24, my compulsory registration. Now, third number ka point, that is about my registration, is I want to get registered, but if I get registered under the normal category, I have to file compulsory monthly return. That is, first return is your outward supply, second is your inward supply ka return, then third return you have to file about both inward and outward supply altogether in order to calculate your input tax credit. So, being a only pani puri wala bhaiya, being a tea stall wala bhaiya, that is the person who are earning a good amount, but it is not possible for them to keep an accountant. It is not possible for them to follow every month all these procedures. A composition scheme has been introduced for such a kind of person. Understood? So, first of all, I have 3 types of registration procedure: normal, compulsory. After normal and compulsory, I have composition scheme wala procedure. So when it comes to composition scheme wala procedure, at the time of registration, I have option to choose whether I want to get registered as a composite dealer or I want to continue as a normal registered person. If I choose to get registered as a normal person, then it would be my section number 9. But if I choose that no, I don't want to be in a normal taxation regime, I want to be a composition dealer, then I would be defined in section number 10. So section number 10 altogether is about composition scheme, and section number 9 is altogether about my normal tax regime. Suppose I get registered under composition scheme. Okay, I got registered under my composition scheme. Now, what are the benefits I would be having and what are the benefits I would not be having? When I talk about section number 10, when I talk about what section number 10, that is my composition scheme. When I talk about my composition scheme, it overrides entire GST Act. My section number 10 overrides entire GST Act. Why I'm saying it overrides entire GST Act? Because now monthly return not necessary. You cannot get ITC because you cannot charge taxes. You cannot collect taxes, so you cannot get ITC. But if a normal person ke bare mein I will be talking, he can take taxes, he can get the ITC. He has to file monthly return. So my section number 10 overrides complete GST Act. My point number 1 that you should note down in composition scheme. Open your copy and write down first point about my section number 10. It overrides entire GST Act. Quickly. Done. However, even it overrides entire GST Act, but it cannot override section number 9 subsection 4 and section number 9 subsection 5. So in spite of overriding overall GST Act, section 10 does not override section 9 subsection 4, section 9 subsection 5, and I fail to understand what is section 9 subsection 4 and section 9 subsection 5. Can anyone tell me what is 9?
Reverse charge it.
Reverse charge mechanism का concept. So even a composition dealer has to fulfill and comply with the regulations of reverse charge mechanism. So section 10 does not override 9(4) and 9(5). What is 9(3) all about?
ECU.
Is it ECU? 9(3) is about RCM, 9(4) is about RCM, or 9(5) is about RCM.
9.5 is have had service.
Yeah, the ECU, the 3 services, housekeeping, and
So basically it
Hat
would be
services.
9(3), it would be 9(4) that it overrides. 9(3) is general services and 9(4) is specified nature का RCM वाला service. Okay, so correct that 9(3) and 9(4. Make a correction 9(3), 9(4). So when it comes to section number 10, it overrides entire act, but it does not overrides the section of reverse charge mechanism. That means even my composition dealer is required to pay the taxes under reverse charge mechanism. He is also required to pay taxes under reverse charge mechanism. Now point number 3. When he got registered under section number 10, can he issue the tax invoices? My composition dealer cannot collect taxes from any other person, so he cannot issue tax invoices. So in such a case, my composition dealer will issue only and only bill of supply. So composition dealer will issue only what? Bill of supply. When I talk about composition scheme, when I talk about composition scheme. In case of composition scheme is applicable for outward supply. It is not applicable to inward supply. Composition scheme is applicable to your outward supply. It is not applicable to inward supply. That is why reverse charge concept is applicable. Are you getting? Why reverse charge mechanism applicable? Because when you purchase, you are liable to pay tax under reverse charge mechanism. That is an inward supply. So this composition is not applicable on inward supply. It is applicable only on outward supply. Done? It done? Then. Now, is every person liable to get registered under composition? As I said, no. if you have aggregate turnover, if you have your aggregate turnover exceeding 1.5 crore in previous year, if you have aggregate turnover that does not exceed 1.5 crore in previous year, aggregate turnover that does not exceed 1.5 crore in previous year, or in some category states it is 75 lakh. So if it is your turnover up to 75 lakh or 1.5 crore aggregate turnover previous year, then only you can be in the composition scheme. Done? Then. So ma'am, how I will calculate this aggregate turnover? I just forgot to calculate aggregate turnover. Is it export you have to include? You have to include all your exempt supply. You have to include all whether of goods, whether of service. Just the aggregate turnover we have studied where? In registration ka chapter. So first of all, calculate all your aggregate turnover. After calculating my aggregate turnover, it is coming to be 80 lakh. I want to get registered under composition scheme, go register under composition scheme. It is 90 lakh, go register. 1.5 crore tak you can get registered, and if it is special category states, then 75 lakh is the bar. Got that? Done? Now, I have registration in 5 states, or I say I have 5 branches. If you even have 5 branches, if you choose one branch chooses composition scheme, तो ये compulsory है कि every branch should get covered under composition scheme. It is not a branch wise choice. If one chooses composition, then everyone should choose and come under the regime of section number 10. Done? So till now what I have done, it is a choice based thing. It is aggregate turnover based thing. If you choose for one branch, you have to choose for every branch. It is not branch wise choice. If you choose composition scheme, you cannot issue tax invoice because you cannot collect taxes. So you have to issue bill of supply. In such a case, mandatory, it is not mandatory to file monthly return because now composition taxpayer will be filing quarterly returns. He has to file what? Quarterly return, so he is not required to file the monthly return now. Write it down. Composition taxpayer files quarterly return. Done? Then, if I choose composition scheme, after choosing the composition scheme, you are not at all allowed to do interstate supply. You cannot do interstate supply because, बताओ क्यों interstate supply not allowed?
तो फिर compulsory registration normal वाला हो जाएगा section.
Compulsory registration is there, that is okay. But even you get registered under composition scheme, you cannot do the interstate supply. Interstate supply पे IGST should be there. ये state wise matter चल रहा था तब तक ठीक था. Now it will be central also involved. State wise registration will be there. So in such a case, do not get registered under composition scheme. Go for normal scheme. So a composition taxpayer cannot do interstate supply of goods. He cannot do what? Interstate supply of goods. Ma'am, can he make interstate inward supply? Tell me with logic. Can he buy from outside state interstate? Purchase is allowed or not? Supply is not allowed to.
It's allowed.
Reason?
Not input tax will not claim.
No. What is the reason? If allowed, what is the reason?
Ma'am, he is already not claiming ITC, so just.
I have already told you one thing. One line.
Outward supply.
Yes,
Outward
composition is applicable only on outward supply. It is not
supplies.
applicable to inward supplies. Are you getting? So write it down. Composition only inward outward supply पे, inward पे नहीं है. So interstate supply of goods is not allowed. However, interstate purchase of inward supplies are allowed. When it comes to composition scheme wala part, again in case of composition scheme, you cannot sell your goods, you cannot do the supply using an e-commerce operator. So a composition dealer cannot go to an e-commerce operator for selling the goods. Why? What is the reason? He cannot take the advantage of ECU.
Ma'am, because then it will be e-commerce. From e-commerce, it can be a interstate sale.
E-commerce means everywhere, electronic commerce operator everywhere. And in such a case, you are not allowed to go to ECO to do the service, but he has his own portal. Khud ka portal, done. No issues with that. But you cannot get registered to an ECO. Giving you one more logic. Why he cannot go to e-commerce operator? A composition taxpayer cannot collect the taxes. Okay, and he will not get what the ITC also. So when a composition taxpayer cannot collect the taxes, he cannot get ITC also. So it will break the chain. It will what? Break the chain. So he cannot go to an ECO because it will also break the chain for ECO too. ECO ke through if we are doing supply, you will not collect the taxes. Again, the matter of IGST involved over here. Now ECO is compulsory required to collect the TCS when if it is the agent and he is collecting your payment, so it will break the chain. So composition taxpayer cannot collect the taxes, he cannot collect the taxes, he cannot get the ITC, but composition taxpayer is required to pay the taxes. He has to pay taxes, but he cannot collect taxes. He has to pay taxes, but he cannot claim input tax credit. Write it down. Composition taxpayer required to pay the taxes but cannot collect tax. That is the reason he cannot issue the tax invoices. Done? Done? Now, is it the normal rate of tax that my composition taxpayer will be paying? No. It is not the normal rate of tax my composition taxpayer will be paying. My composition taxpayer has a specific rate of tax. So now we will be writing about the rate of tax that my composition taxpayer has to pay. When it comes to manufacturer, if my composition taxpayer is a manufacturer, in such a case, he has to pay 0.5%, making it 1% turnover in state. Composition taxpayer has to pay, if it is a manufacturer, 0.5% CGST, 0.5% SGST, making it as a 1%. Turnover in state, point to be noted, turnover in state you have to highlight. Ma'am, when it comes to trader, if my composition taxpayer is a trader, in such a case, again it is 0.5, 0.5, but for trader it is taxable turnover. It is taxable turnover in state. On taxable turnover in state, you have to pay 0.5%. Can I write here IGST? Can I write here IGST? Or it would always be 0.5, 0.5?
Always 0.5.
Yes, because not allowed to do interstate supply. Now third, if it is restaurant service, if it is what a restaurant service, in such a case 2.5%, 2.5%, again turnover of state. Now, I have mentioned one thing, that whether you are liable to get registered under composition scheme or you are not liable to get under composition scheme will depend on your aggregate turnover. So in order to check whether I can get registered under composition scheme or I cannot get registered under composition scheme, I have to check first my aggregate turnover. So pehla benchmark is I will check my aggregate turnover. But ma'am, if my aggregate turnover crosses 1.5 crore, you cannot get registered. You cannot continue as a composition dealer. You have to shift to your normal registration. Pehla point समझ में आया? Now I am under 1.5 crore. So सबसे पहली चीज, this is the benchmark. If you are covered under 1.5 crore, you can be in composition taxpayer का region. Okay. Now second thing, I am a composition taxpayer now. And I have registration in my 5 states. From each state, I am doing intrastate supply. Same pen mein I am there. I registered under same pen. In every state, I continue that as intrastate supply because I am composition wala person, cannot do interstate supply. Okay. Now, when it comes to paying the tax, when it comes to payment of tax, for the payment of tax, state-wise payment is needed. Aggregate turnover is checked for whether you are getting liable for composition or not. But when it comes to taxes, so you have to see your state ka tax turnover, your state ka turnover, your state ka turnover. That means I am registered in state number 1, state number 2, state number 3, state number 4. I am registered in all 4 states. Same pen registered in all 4 states. So according to the aggregate wala basis, in order to check whether you can get registered under composition scheme or not, I will just calculate aggregate of all this turnover. I have calculated the aggregate of all this turnover, and this turnover is up to, suppose, 1.5 crore. This turnover is up to 1.5 crore. Okay, so now you can continue. Now you can continue as a composition taxpayer. Now, when you are a composition taxpayer, now you want to pay the taxes. So in such a case, when you want to pay the taxes, you have to see only turnover of this state, check the turnover of only this state, then turnover of this state, then check the turnover of this state individually. Individual turnover of each state will be taken for the payment of tax. Suppose when it was coming to 1.5 crore, suppose it was 50 lakh in this state, it was 25 lakh here, it was 20 lakh here. So individually it was 50, 25, 20, and let's say here also it was having 10 lakh. So again it was coming less than 1.5 crore. So when I have to pay the tax, suppose from state 1 I do the manufacturing. So for a manufacturer, see the turnover of the state. So my turnover of the state is 50 lakh. So 50 lakh per 0.5% I have to pay in that state. Ma'am, now my turnover is 25 lakh, but I am a trader over here. I am doing the trading. So out of this 25 lakh, suppose 5 lakh is my exempt supply. That is not at all liable to tax. So in such a case, you have to pay taxes, but on 20 lakh, you will be paying again 0.5%. Are you getting? On 20 lakh, you will pay 0.5. Why not? Because this is a trader. Now, again here, I have a restaurant ka business. So if you have restaurant ka business, check the turnover of the state. So here you have to pay 2.5%. 2.5% of turnover, 2.5% of turnover in state. So every time, first of all, to get registered, check the aggregate turnover. Then for the payment of tax, you have to check individually what is the turnover of the state. Understood? But when it comes to manufacturer, aggregate turnover of state. But when it comes to trader, only taxable turnover of the state is relevant. Done? Done, Itna? Himadri? Done? No. So, what we have discussed till now, सबसे पहले कि composition scheme. Now, ma'am, you failed to explain us one thing. What I failed to explain? Whether this taxable, this composition scheme is applicable for goods or service or both or only goods. So composition scheme is only and only applicable in case of goods. So if you are the person who supplies goods, in such a case only you will be eligible to get into the regime of composition scheme. Ma'am, I have a doubt. What is your doubt? You are saying it should be exclusively supply of goods. Yes, it should be exclusively supply of goods. But ma'am, remember, in registration also you have told me that every shopkeeper, every business wala person will be doing advances. He will be depositing his money somewhere, and on the deposit of that money, he would be earning the interest. That means it is supply of service. When you do the deposit, when you give the advance, it is anyhow supply of service because you are getting interest or discount on that. So remember, that has been mega exempted. And here for the purpose of composition scheme, that is not counted in your aggregate turnover, not counted in your turnover of state. And they will not count it, point number one. Second point, still I have a confusion. What is your confusion? Suppose you are the mobile phone wala shop, you have a shop of mobile phone. Okay, you sell only the phone. Ye lo ye bhaiya phone hai, this is the phone, this is nothing, it is goods ka supply. Now if some person comes to you, ki my phone is getting hanged again and again. I don't know what is the issue. Now what I will do, I will check the phone, I will do certain services on that, and I will say ki lo bhaiya, theek ho gaya. The phone is in warranty period. If it is in warranty period and I have that repair, I have the capability कि थोड़ा बहुत repair करके I can give. So you are giving service. चलो वो भी छोड़ते हैं. Someone purchased a lot of stuff from me. बहुत सारा stuff मेरे यहाँ से खरीद के चला गया. अब obviously he is unable to carry. He will say कि please मेरे घर तक deliver करवा देना. Fridge sold, TV sold. Your washing machine sold, electronic items sold. So obviously that is the I will be the one who will deliver it at your doorstep. अब ये तो all this ये क्या हो रहा है? It is all about service. It is all about service now. तो ये तो सारी services चल रही है, and it is only about supply of goods. Composition scheme वाला person should be only involved in supply of goods. In such a case, looking to all these cases, कि obviously every business, even if I sell the books, अगर बुक्स भी सेल कर रही हो, कुछ प्रॉब्लम बुक्स में भी है, तो कोई अगर आएगा तो आई विल डू सर्टेन काइंड ऑफ सर्विसेज ओवर देयर. थोड़ा बहुत तो सर्विस आई विल गिव. So in order to avoid all such things, they have given a limit. And now what is the limit? First of all, they have given a limit that whether it is your manufacturer, whether it is your trader, or whether it is your restaurant wala person, check his state-wise limit. You have to check the state-wise limit. That overall value of your supply of service should not be exceeding 10% of the turnover in such a state, 10% of turnover in such union territory, or 5 lakh, whichever is higher. So they have allowed a limit. Every state is the limit. Every state-wise limit they have given. If you are registered in 5 states, every state check the turnover of that state. 10% or 5 lakh, whichever is higher. 10% of turnover of that state, 5 lakh, whichever is higher. So 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, or 5 lakh, whichever is higher. Up to that amount service you could also provide. So service utna allowed. So they have created a benchmark. Ma'am, suppose I am supplying service only of 2 lakh rupees. So 2 lakh or 5 lakh, whichever is higher, still you have 5 lakh ka limit. Go for 5 lakh. Are you getting?
हम रेस्टोरेंट और केटरिंग तो बहुत सारा सर्विस इंक्लूड करता है.
Pardon?
रेस्टोरेंट और केटरिंग तो बहुत सर्विस इंक्लूड करता है, तो उधर भी 5 लाख फिक्स रहेगा.
Specifically, समझो. When it comes to restaurant वाला part, restaurant is not only खाना बना के वहां पे सर्व करना, but till the time now Zomato deliver भी करवाना. So when they are delivering, then suppose restaurant वाला भैया is involved in birthday party organizing. अब that is not his main part of the business, but छोटा मोटा तो he do केक कटिंग हो गया वहां पे. अब ये तो सर्विसेज हैं. तो रेस्टोरेंट के अलावा भी कुछ सर्विस इफ दे आर प्रोवाइडिंग. सपोज फोटोग्राफी, देयर आर मेनी कैफेज जहाँ पे क्या जाके वो DSLR से अपना पिक लो, फिर ये सारी क्या एक्स्ट्रा सर्विस दे आर प्रोवाइडिंग टू attract the customers. In such a case, restaurant service के apart में if anything is there, 5 lakh. Got that? Any question? So whenever it is apart from restaurant, composition scheme is all in all about supply of goods. But only one thing they have included is restaurant. If they are actually providing services, but still they have included restaurant wala part. Okay? And from apart from restaurant service, any services provided by that restaurant wala bhaiya, in such a case 5 lakh or 10% of the turnover of that state, whichever is that. It is branch wise limit. Understood? So if I make a crux of all these things, first of all, composition scheme, section number 10, subsection 1. It overrides the act. Yes, it overrides my entire act, but not 9.3 and 9.4. That means RCM will be applicable to my composition scheme wala person. Why so? Because composition is on outward supply, it is not on inward supply. It is on outward supply, it is not on inward supply. Composition scheme is only for registered person. Obviously, it is for registered person. Na? The person you want to get registered or who is already registered can shift in composition to normal. A person who has aggregate turnover not exceeding 1.5 crore, and if he has even get voluntary registration, still 1.5 crore. Okay. And some state it is 75 lakh, that is special category state, but except Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir. So in special category state, you have to do what? You have to exclude this. H, Himachal Pradesh, A, Assam, and J, Jammu and Kashmir. Hajj you have to exclude. In case of composition, we will exclude what? Hajj. That is H for Himachal Pradesh, A for Assam, J for Jammu and Kashmir. Now, is it mandatory? No, it is just an optional scheme. Option you have. What is the tax rate, ma'am, when it comes to manufacturer? 0.5%, making it 1% turnover in state. Then when it comes to restaurant category wala person, 2.5% again turnover in state. When it comes to trader, it is 0.5% turnover, but taxable supply. But what taxable supply? And that means exempted things, nil rated things are excluded for applying this GST ka rate. How to calculate this taxes? You have to calculate your turnover in state. All the taxable supplies of goods and service, now you can understand why service is included. Only that limit. Except inward supply under RCM. Why? Inward supply under RCM is not your supply. Okay, Jana? Inward supply under RCM is not your supply. Except wholly exempt and nil. Why specifically written wholly exempt and nil? For trader you have to exclude, but for others you have to include. So amount into tax rate, it would be calculated like that. So पहले तो check करो aggregate turnover. Is it eligible for composition? Yes, eligible for composition. So state wise tax rate we will be calculating. State wise tax we will calculate. Then who is eligible? Check your previous year ka turnover. check the aggregate turnover of previous year. If it does not exceed 1.5 crore, then in this year you are eligible to get registered as a composition taxpayer. But ma'am, previous year my turnover does not exceed it. Previous year my turnover does not exceed it, but in this year my turnover exceeded. Now, previous year if it not exceeded, in such a case you are eligible to get registered as a composition taxpayer in this year. But as and when your turnover exceeded 1.5 crore, now you have to get converted into normal registration. तो जिस दिन ये क्या हुआ, जैसे ही ये क्रॉस होता है, the day it crosses, you have to get registered as a normal taxpayer person. मतलब जैसे ही वो condition break हुई, the day the condition broken, within 7 days you have to apply to proper officer कि गया, अब I have to get registered as a normal person. Vice versa. You were actually registered as a normal person. तुम actually normal person की तरह ही registered थे. Now, in the middle of the year, you find कि anyhow my turnover will not cross 1.5 crore. Whatever you do, your turnover is not going to cross 1.5 crore. Now you want कि I should get converted into composition scheme. Is it possible to get in the middle of the year from normal to composition? No. Why? Loss of government है ना, government को तो losses हो जाएंगे. When you want to enter for the first time registration I am taking, I was not at all registered. मैं कभी registered ही नहीं थी. In such a case, middle of the year allowed. First time registration, middle of the year composition में enter कर जाओ. Then second case, if I was registered as a normal person, now I want to get converted into composition. No, you cannot get converted into composition scheme in the middle of the year. तो कब जाएंगे? Let the year end. From the beginning of the next year, you have to choose your composition scheme. Understood? So can I go in the middle only when it is fresh registration? But ma'am, is it possible from composition to normal in the middle? वो तो welcome करेंगे और आ जाओ composition से normal में तो taxes के compliance होंगे. Every month you will be paying the taxes. तो normal to composition anytime. Normal to composition anytime. Ulta, composition to normal anytime. Second thing, composition first time if you want, first time registration should be there, then also middle में चलेगा. So write it down. लिखो हिमाद्री, sit straight, start writing, sit straight. Himadri is going to say, ma'am, क्या? Sit straight. If you don't want to get scolded, sit straight and write it down. छोटा छोटा नर्सरी का बच्चा. Is it your exam, Himadri? I guess it is your exam.
If it is evening class, you can see my sincerity, ma'am.
Yeah. Hmm?
If it is evening class, you can see my sincerity. That time you can judge 100%. Yes, it is your exam. This is because morning I am not able to seriously.
It is only now countdown begins. What is the date today? 22?
I'll attend the class, then night time only I'll study, ma'am. I can't this morning and all. Seriously.
You were aware about this morning time, na?
Ma'am?
You were aware about this morning time, na?
Yeah, I thought I can do this, but
You
no.
already did it. Already more than halfway you have already traveled.
It's very difficult, ma'am. Seriously. Early morning wake up.
दुख तो देखो बच्चों के कितने गहरे हैं. Now I can't repeat that in English. Return. So composition to normal anytime, but normal to composition at the beginning of the year or when you are getting registered for the first time. Himadri, that is a very good thing that you are not in DT. DT starts 6 in the morning. They wake up at least at 5:30. Sorry, you are not in. You are in IDT only 6 wala. Arey. Previously, it was last year. Last wala attempt it was 6 से DT. So I got confused. And DT itna need mein. It is not at all possible to do DT in such a manner.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I am going to complete today my DT. Last day of DT.
Arey, खुशी तो देखो. So within 9 days you will complete your IDT also. And just do understand one thing, after the completion of task, do not do this thing that you are not completing my mentoring wala task. Half hour you have to anyhow spend for DT who are in DT and IDT also. So 1 hour will be always booked for that. Okay?
Every day till exam.
No, not till exam, at least till my test series. Then whatever you have other subjects also, both group walo ke bhi dusre subject, but at least half an hour you should spend because IDT is very easy to score exemption. So you cannot lose exemption at least in IDT.
Okay.
So half an hour is okay. अगर एक बार बहुत अच्छे से you have learned everything, so even I will give you ना just recall schedule number 3. तो तुम तो without opening the book you can write. So it is not taking even more than half an hour. Okay. Chalo. I can go for till exam also, but you would not be comfortable. I know. Okay. Chalo. So now let's start with again composition scheme. So ma'am, what if I get my limit cross within the year? If within the year your limit has crossed, so it is easy to get from composition to normal scheme. In that year only, you had to get again converted into normal scheme. When your aggregate turnover crosses that date, composition scheme got left, and after that date you have to pay taxes under normal rate. Understood? Done? Now. What are the conditions? Can my composition scheme wala person get engaged in supply of service? Generally, it is like, can they do supply of service? Yes. But in case of supply of service, something has been given, and what has been given? If they want to do supply of service, then there is the limit. What is the limit? Manufacturer, trader, restaurant wala person should not exceed for the supply of service 10% of the turnover in state or 5 lakh, whichever is higher. What about that? Turnover in state does not include interest, discount on deposit, loan or advance. Are you getting? Even your turnover in state, even your aggregate turnover, both will not be including this interest, discount on deposit, loan or advances. Should I check this limit for all the branch? Yes. Is it branch-wise limit? Obviously, it is state-wise limit. In every state, you are having different branches. In every state, it would be your limit. Done? Now, engaged in supply of goods, then not liable to tax. If they are engaged only in supply of goods, then they are not liable to tax. Composition tax wala person is not liable to pay tax if he is registered under composition scheme. However, there are certain 5 products that are not at all taxable. So when they are not at all taxable, even if you get registered under composition scheme, see, composition taxpayer ka person, composition tax is applicable only in case of goods that are taxable. That eventually the goods that are not taxable, तो उसके लिए तुम composition करके क्या करोगे? Suppose I am doing altogether exempt supply. Even my aggregate turnover crosses, even my aggregate turnover is up to 1.5 crore. What is the logic of making him register even under composition? Because altogether non-taxable supply it is, so no logic of getting them registered. Okay? So composition scheme applies only when you are doing taxable supply of service, not non-taxable supply of service. Can he get engaged in interstate supply of goods. No, he cannot get engaged in interstate supply. If he's engaged, then he cannot take the composition scheme. If he's not engaged in this, then he can take the composition supply ka benefit. If he is doing taxable supply wali things, he is not doing taxable supply of goods. If not taxable, so composition is not applicable. If he is not, if he is supplying only taxable wala things, then only composition scheme will be applicable to him. Now, supply through ECO. Can he do supply through ECO? If yes, composition scheme not available. If he is not supplying through ECO, composition scheme will be applicable to him. But ma'am, he is having his own portal, so he can do the composition supply. No issues in that. Ma'am, he is not a manufacturer. Again, a condition, that person should not be manufacturer of notified goods. Somewhere we have again discussed this. If someone is a notified goods manufacturer, he cannot get the, what was that? 40 wala limit. Remember? 40 lakh ka limit.
Yes, ma'am.
Exception in 40 lakh.
Yes, ma'am.
HEG state.
Remember? So similarly, if a composition taxpayer is a manufacturer, he is a manufacturer of pan masala, aerated water or tobacco or ice cream, he cannot get registered under composition scheme. Are tum yahi dekho na, tobacco, lot of revenue from that. So pan masala, lot of revenue. So where they have lot of revenue, they will not allow you composition scheme. And you should not be CTP NRTP. I am unable to understand the logic behind the CTP NRTP. Why not? Batao, why not CTP?
Section 24 compulsory registration and
और ये
They
interest rate supply
register
दोनों
What
when,
even do compulsory? Yes, Madhuri.
ma'am, they'll register when CTP will register only in case of very less time of supply, ma'am. I mean,
CTP is already doing interstate supply. He's
Yeah,
going to the state. CTP हो गया, NRTP, non-resident person coming to India, already an interstate supply. You should not be CTP NRTP. Understood? Is it a PAN-based registration? Yes, it is PAN-based and it is not branch-wise. If one of the branch is covered under composition, entire branch would be covered under composition. For my special category state, except what Himachal Pradesh, Assam, Jammu and Kashmir, it would be 75 lakh. Is purchase from unregistered person payment of RCM. See, there is one more section, section number 9, subsection 4. If you purchase from an unregistered person, in such a case, registered person is required to pay taxes. So in such a case, if it is my composition taxpayer, 9(3) also applicable to him, 9(4) is also applicable to him. If he purchased from an unregistered person, RCM applicable, but till now, this rule not applicable in GST. They have given, but till now, practically it is not applicable. Now, composition taxpayer, not eligible to make tax invoices, he will be only giving bill of supply. Understood? And last, display the name. Everywhere he has to display, I am a composition taxpayer. Where composition taxpayer, on every notice he has to display, on every signboard he has to display, at every principal place of the business and additional place of the business he should display, even in the bill. I am a composition taxpayer. So everyone should know that this is a composition taxpayer. Understood? So this is your composition scheme, overall composition scheme. Aya, just 2 minutes to scroll down the chart. I have already shared this chapter number 3 में it was there. अभी है? वापस share करूँ? Chapter number 3 में you would be having composition scheme. Only 2 minutes में you have to scroll down, okay? So I hope the reading part has been done. Now, tell me one thing. If a person who was actually registered under normal tax regime, so he was getting ITC wala claim also. When he was registered under normal tax regime, he was getting all the ITC, he was paying taxes. Now, when he got converted from normal to composition scheme, obviously he will not get the ITC. So at the time of end, either he has to pay what is debit, either there would be debit of the ITC amount or outward tax liability, whichever is higher. Remember? Have we done that? पहले भी किया similar concept apply है. If you are a normal person, if you are what a normal person getting converted into composition scheme, so first of all you have to give all the details. This is my ITC, this is my input, itna my finished goods, every detail you give. Then pay either input tax credit ka debit or cash ledger mein you have to pay the balance amount, or compare it with the output tax liability, whichever is higher that you have to pay. Whichever is higher kya karna hai, you have to pay. Understood? Done? Now what opposite? Composition to normal you are coming. So even from composition to normal you are coming. Now you will start getting ITC on whatever input you have, whatever capital goods you have. So now if you will start getting ITC, again you have to give the details that these are my input, these are my capital goods, these are my raw material, everything you have to give the detail of. Understood? Somewhere within, proper officer find that this person is actually not eligible for composition scheme. Again, with fraudulently, misstatement, etc. So if he finds that the person is not eligible for composition scheme, he can also throw you in the normal scheme. Understood? So it depends on proper officer. Aya? So that completes my overall composition scheme. Ma'am, ye to ho gaya goods walo ki baat. Now, who is aggrieved? Tell me. Kaun aggrieved ho jayega? Service. So when it was only about goods. अरे तुम गुड्स करते रहे तो क्या जीवन में सर्विस नहीं लेते? अर्बन क्लैब, obviously अर्बन क्लैब is a very big company, but I'm talking about वो पार्लर वाली दीदी. Oh, what about her? ठीक है. Then talking about वो कटिंग वाले भैया. What about that? So they are getting aggrieved कि you are giving only exclusive supply of goods को composition scheme. तो हमने क्या पाप किए? हमने क्या ऐसा गुनाह कर दिया कि हमको भूल गए? So in such a case, they introduce again a composition scheme, and this composition scheme is specifically for service wala person. Can they supply goods also? Similarly, there जैसा था ना यहाँ पे भी, yes, little bit of goods they can do, but exclusively उनका काम क्या है? Exclusively is they are doing the supply of services. So now here it is called margin scheme again. So now it is section number 10, subsection 2A. Composition scheme was available only in respect to goods and service wala part, that is restaurant wala part. Now who is aggrieved? What if I am exclusively supplying service but I am not a restaurant wala bhaiya? Restaurant wala bhaiya already covered where he is already covered in that wala scheme. So what if I am doing exclusive supply of service? In such a case for them, he is very aggrieved. You can see from the face, he is aggrieved. So he got a smile, but my smile is not very good in this. So he got a notification कि for you concessional rate of tax now applicable. That notification got converted into section 10(2). ठीक है? चलो. For small service provider, they were not eligible for that. So for them, if your aggregate turnover in previous year is up to 50 lakh, if your aggregate turnover in the previous year is up to 50 lakh, in such a case, you can choose this composition scheme. Service वाले भैया तुम भी खुश हो जाओ. ठीक है? Now, what is the tax rate? Instead of that 0.5, 0.5, 2.5, 2.5, they are required to pay 3%, 3%. उनको कितना पे करना है? 3%. So when I talk about my concessional वाला part, that is on supply of service, you should not be engaged in supply of goods. Composition is only with respect to goods. Here it should not be having service. Can they do interstate outward supply of goods in my normal tax regime? In my normal text reasoning, yes, they can do interstate supply of goods. No, they cannot do interstate supply of goods. But here, when it comes to this part, that is my normal wala. They can't do even goods ka, they can't do even service ka. Udhar to sirf goods specific tha. Now they cannot do the goods wala part also, they cannot do the service wala part, no interstate allowed. They should not be CTP and RTP. Similarly, no CTP, no NRTP. Can they do ECOS service? No, here cannot do ECOS service. Ma'am, can they get engaged in manufacturing of notified goods? यहाँ पे भी नहीं. But यहाँ तो manufacturer हो सकते हैं, but notified goods के manufacturer they cannot be. Then, does this apply branch wise? Yes. वही branch wise same pen. Everything is similar. But यहाँ पे difference क्या है? The difference is now turnover is 50 then. That means I can say all those persons who were ineligible to get the composition scheme under section number 10, all those persons who are not able to get composition scheme under section number 10, they are now open for section number 2A. That means specifically supply of services you are doing, and along with service little bit of goods also you are selling. In such a case, if you have the previous year ka turnover limit of 50 lakh, in such a case, pay 3%, rest is same. All the things are same. So this is my overall registration ka part that I have completed, whether it is normal registration, whether it is my compulsory registration, whether it is related to composition scheme, whether it is related to amendment in registration, core field, non-core field, whether it is related to suspension, cancellation of registration. So when it comes to registration, do not study composition as a part of chapter number 3. It should be here, types of registration. So type of registration, normal, compulsory, composition, and in composition also 2 types, 10 and 10-2A. So what is the task for today? Complete composition scheme you have to read and test your knowledge ke question of registration. Registration ke you have to do test your knowledge ke questions and complete composition scheme ka proper reading mandatory. And once you have did with the study material every reading, after that my mind maps are more than sufficient for revision. Every concept of study material already covered. If you look into this, see, even about your composition scheme, this was the crux that we have studied. Ye pura crux mein. Again here, 9.4 also given. Again, ye composition in 1 page again given. Everything. Then when proper officer will do what, till when it is valid, everything has been given over here. Okay, so that was a crux. And every chota detail about your study material given here. Okay, so this completes my chapter number 3 as well as proper registration ka chapter. So your target, test your knowledge registration wala, complete reading and learning of composition. Tomorrow we will discuss pehle registration ke question, then we will do composition ke question tomorrow. Okay? Chalo, okay. Then day after tomorrow, we will start with mega exemption. So do not skip the class. Okay? Chalo. Bye-bye.